Welcome to Monday night at the Future Food System. So today we've got the first of the innovators there's quite a few, but this one is pretty unique because he's part of a team that's come up with the amazing skin that's on the outside of the building. You can see it here. It's a fold on a corner, which has everybody freaked out. Everyone that walks past just wants to walk in and touch it and see it. You can see here it's an external fold, and there it's an internal fold. It's really exciting because, I didn't even know about these guys 3 months ago, and someone sent me a link to, a video, and I said, "What? How have they done this?" So, for me, it's been really exciting to get it included in this project because I think one of the things I'm obsessed about is designing resilient buildings. And bushfire resilience, I think, is going to be something that we need to really resolve in the future. And what I love about this is it doesn't need a flashing, so you can't get ember attack and vermin proof and all those sorts of things. So you use less materials. It's a very strong connection because of the way it's folded. And so let's talk to Matt Dingle, who's one of the founders of FormFlow. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Joost.
So how did it start? How did it come about?
There's a guy I've worked with for years. He's in his late 80s now. He lives in New Zealand, and so he's a former academic. And in the 80s, he and his cousin decided to try and work out how to apply origami to forming metal. And they were inspired by the apple pie containers at McDonald's. And so they set about trying to develop the mathematical theory for how those surfaces work. And then he showed this to me, and we talked about it for a number of years, and then I decided to try and apply it to this problem, and that's where we came up with this.
I love that it started with a meal at McDonald's.
With an apple pie container, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah, it's really cool. It's actually very similar. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it's still used in packaging a lot today, yeah.
So, I mean, one of the questions I get asked a lot by kids and stuff, they think an idea becomes a reality really quickly, but really, how many years is that to now? Are you talking 15, 20 years ago?
Well, I mean, he did the first theoretical stuff in the 80s, early 80s, so yeah, it's a long time.
He must be really proud.
He is, yeah, and he's still actively involved. I mean, I was on the phone with him earlier today, and we still throw ideas back and forwards, and so he's still very much involved in what we're doing. Yeah.
And a bit of background for you. So obviously, we'd love to know how you started in all this.
Well, I've got a bit of a varied background. I started life as a boat builder. I didn't go and study engineering until I was in my late 20s. I already had kids by that stage, and spent quite a lot of time working in the automotive industry. Went back to boats, and then got really interested in bringing ideas to life. So I spent quite a lot of time working with other people who were trying to develop ideas and helping them from an engineering perspective. And I thought, well, I'd really like to have a crack at taking something from a basic idea all the way through to something that's commercially viable, and started up a company which is still going, Carbon Revolution, and so that was really the first serious attempt to try and create something just from an idea.
So that would have been actually really, I mean, everybody seems to know about that because it got so much publicity, that to create, that amazing concept that ended up getting worldwide recognition. I mean, it's still a unique concept or unique there's no one else that really does it.
There's nobody else who's managed to do it, and that was really the motivator. I mean, we'd looked at all the patent literature from the 70s, and during the oil crisis in the States, people had been trying to make a wheel out of composites and hadn't managed to do it. So that was really the motivation. Nobody's managed to do it, so let's have a go.
Yeah.
And there's still nobody. There's been a few who've tried in Europe, and we're still the only ones.
Yeah, wow. And that's all made here, still in Australia?
All in Australia, all in Geelong, yep.
Wow. And so who did they, I mean, are you still involved or you're...
Not really, no, I'm involved I'm sort of still a shareholder, but I'm not actively involved in the business any longer.
So what sort of, do you custom make, or do you do work for car companies, or who do they sell?
Yeah, so the main customers are Ferrari and Ford. And there's a bunch of other ones as well, but they're the two big contracts that are well known.
Yeah, right.
Ford in the US and Ferrari.
Wow. And so how long did that, take from an idea to become reality? And
well, it all sort of started with a bunch of student projects in early 2000s at Deakin Uni. It wasn't until 2006 '96 that we tried to commercialise it. So by that stage I wasn't involved with the university any longer, but brought some of the students that had been involved back into it, and from 2007 was when we really started to try and do it commercially, and so yeah, whatever that is, 13 odd years, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's a long time. I get I mean, I don't know you that long, but I get the sense that you get a lot of, you really enjoy the process of working with people and, realising other people's ideas as well, or getting other people's contributions.
Yeah.
That's obviously been a big part of this, but also the carbon fibre.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think often people see innovation as a sort of singular activity, one person who's a mad inventor goes and does something, but I don't think it's like that. You have to work with really talented people. You just know one person has all the skills they need to make something happen.
Yeah.
You've got to share it around, and I think that's the bit that I really enjoy, finding a really talented group of people and then working with them to try and realise the idea.
Yeah, and it's all been done in Geelong. So where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Melbourne, so
yeah, right.
I was in southeastern suburbs of Melbourne until I was in my late teens. Moved into Melbourne. At that stage I was pretty heavily involved in competitive sport and spent a bit of time, working and doing that, and then went and lived overseas for a few years, got married, had my first child and came back again, and then moved straight to Geelong.
Is that because you got work in Geelong, or you just loved it down there?
Yeah, basically because I got work in Geelong. I had my own boat building company I started that when I was 19, and then got offered a job with a Geelong company. In fact, we developed, back in 1989, we developed the first carbon fibre rigger for a boat, and I think we were probably one of the first in the world to do that then, and that was just me working with a couple of other people who were interested, not even rowing people. That was.
And carbon fibre is of interest to you because it's so strong, obviously. What are the other reasons for, wanting to use carbon fibre?
Oh, look, I think just coming from a boat building background, that was, that's always been a bit of a magic material, and so we use that extensively. I think the motivation for the stuff then was that I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't afford to buy a boat. I had to make my own, so I made it out of balsa wood with a bit of carbon fibre in it, and so I made it for about 1/10 of what it would have cost me if I'd bought one.
And then you were rowing that around or moving that around, and people were saying, "Can you make one for me?" Or is that how it started?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, so that's how I got offered the job from the Geelong manufacturer that actually Nick and I worked with until fairly recently. So I've maintained.
Nick can't be on camera because he's been bitten by a bee. He set up his flow hive yesterday. It's true.
It is true.
Yeah. No, and the thing that really fascinates me is, like, I think I've had a lot of the team from FormFlow here on site at different times, but it just feels like a bunch of mates getting together and, really passionate about the idea and really passionate to see it realised. And, the company is so young and it's in Geelong. Like we spoke about that before, there's this... people seem to think that there's not a lot of innovation that goes on in Australia, and I just feel that it's the complete opposite is true. You're always finding people that are doing really great stuff, really innovative things, especially in rural communities and and on the outskirts. And I think it's a combination. Like 2 weeks ago, I was with a guy who's been off grid for 40 years, makes hot rods and motorbikes, from scratch. Completely off grid using 100-year-old batteries, and stuff like that, and he just makes all his own stuff. That's what I love about this country, and coming from Holland, I've always felt that dealing with you guys, I've felt that same energy exists. Like anything's possible, and as a team, you're doing the job, but you're constantly thinking about, how can we modify or change this, or how can we do that, and it's again, like talking about Geelong and that area where you guys are based. Do you feel that there's, it seems to me like there's so much innovation coming out of that area at the moment.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the reason for that?
Well, I think there's a few things. The departure of Ford and Shell and Alcoa kind of left a hole economically, but I think out of that's grown all sorts of possibilities. And so particularly young engineers and architects and other people with a sort of design background have seen that as an opportunity, and they're really diving into it.
Yeah.
And so there's a real sense of, yeah, we can do something here. And until recently, we were in a building on the Deakin Uni campus called Manufutures, and there's about 13 startups in there, all manufacturing startups. So they're all building things. It's not software development, and you know, so they're creating all sorts of things from fire training simulators to intelligent materials, and you know, really interesting stuff. So you've got all these people down the hallway you can go and chat to about what you're doing.
Yep.
They're not competitors. They're just interested, and so there's this real sense of, you know, positivity, and you know, let's see what we can do.
Yeah. So a sense of working together to try and achieve, you know, a common goal.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's infectious. I mean, you'd know that too from the things that you do. You know, when you're obviously passionate about what you're doing, and there's that real sense of positivity, people get on board, and people like, you know, being involved in what's going on.
Yeah, I find like my rule is I follow a few simple guidelines in my life, and you know, can it be recycled? That's my number one. Like I'm a big believer in passionately believe in zero waste, and I think in the future we'll just live in a zero waste society, which will probably solve 90% of our problems. You know, but it actually means that you're quite limited. You know, 90% of the building materials aren't recyclable, and so you're suddenly looking, geez, how can I find? And that's where you find the gems. You know? And being forced to think that way and limiting your boundaries actually forces you to be more creative, and you end up coming up with a whole bunch of different solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the boat building thing is really interesting because I seem to come across in my life a lot of people that are from the boat building background. They seem to be really innovative and think outside the square, because I think when you're dealing with boats or when dealing with the ocean, you know, if you're building something on solid ground, you don't have to think about, you know, how robust something is or how something will move when it gets hit by waves. Or do you reckon there's an element of that?
Well, it does seem to be. I don't know what it comes from. I mean, the fact that there's nothing straight and square and it's all curves, I think that sort of breeds an attention to detail and a sort of way of thinking that's really useful. I mean, we've had people from boat building backgrounds in all the things that we've done, and you know, they're a really valuable component of what you do. I mean, you need people to do all sorts of things, but certainly in the early stages, you know, those skills are really helpful.
And there's a big boat building community in Geelong too.
Well, fairly big, yeah. I mean, the company that I mentioned before, Sykes, they're you know, they're sort of 40 or 50 people there. So there's a lot of people that move in and out of that group who we've sort of tapped into from time to time.
And so, FormFlow, when did you launch?
2016, September.
And
so 4 years we've been going.
Yeah, right. And so, and you create your own machinery that actually do the fold.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I posted it on my Instagram. You know, when you guys started, and I was getting direct messages from people in America saying, "Oh, have these guys got an agent in America?" You know, so I think you really have created something that's got, you know, huge appeal. What's the game plan? Like you've launched, you can now buy it here in Victoria, but you'll be hopefully releasing it for people in other states later this year. Is that?
Yeah. So we've licensed this bend to BlueScope.
Yep.
And I mean, I guess we recognise that our core expertise is taking these ideas and bringing them to life, basically. And that means for us, we take it all the way through to commercial reality. So we actually get out there and start selling it and make sure that we understand how it works and so on, and then license it. And we've got a whole pipeline of things that we're in the process of developing that we will try and license, including building systems and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So that's our game plan, really. We want it all to be focused on housing, trying to address issues like housing affordability.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next. So that's your next big. You're investing a lot of time and energy into trying to build more affordable houses.
Yeah, and particularly for specific groups. So, you know, we've done a lot of work with an architect in Queensland on bushfire resilient housing. We've done some work with local groups in Geelong on transition housing for homeless men. So there's a whole lot of things like that. We're really focusing on specific groups where the need is high, and where there's a real sort of social outcome, not just a commercial one. So that's how we want to focus. But the idea is, once we get something that works really well, we look to license that, and that could go anywhere in the country or overseas, and then we work on the next thing. So there'll be a next generation and a next one.
So it's constant innovation, which is what you're really good at, and that's what
we love doing. So
yeah, good on you. And so when are you hoping to launch the first? You know, because it's a modular system there that you're working on. So when are you hoping to launch the first modular house?
Well, we've already got an order at the moment that we're working on for the Samaritan House group in Geelong. So that's 7 builds. We're working with groups in Rosedale, and hopefully some of those will come off soon. So that'll hopefully be end of this year or early next year. But it's we're already selling things. So
yeah, wow.
We're in the process of registering ourselves as a builder and so on. So yeah, it's already underway.
So how do people find you? It's just through social media or website, or like they get onto the FormFlow website and can find the housing that way?
Yep. That's all being revamped at the moment too, so it'll be easier to find us. But it's that's the best way. Yeah.
Cool. And what's some other elements about the house that make it unique?
So we've tried to take all the things that we've learnt through the automotive industry and apply those to housing. And I mean, lots of people say that, and we spent a long time going around and having a look at what people are doing in prefabricated housing, and we think there's still a lot of opportunity. I mean, a lot of prefabrication is still based around timber framing. Ours is based around steel, and for a whole host of reasons, but it does lend itself to automation and modularity and accuracy, basically, which is an important component of any modular housing. So we've worked with experts from Toyota and other places, and people from the construction industry, and we're just trying to understand.
You're actually working with Peter Blythe.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Peter helped me build the Sydney greenhouse.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Actually, 2012 he was involved with the one here as well in 2008.
Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah. The problem I found with it's actually too accurate. You know, the computer software is so accurate that you actually, when you're building, you need to actually allow like a millimetre. But to work with something that's so...
Depends how you build.
That's right. You've got to take that into account.
That's right. So we're designing all the tolerances in. So, in fact, we build from the inside out. So we have machined plywood as an interior lining, and that's the most accurate part of the whole build. So we can work from there, which means that all of our detailing and everything is spot on. And you can design in the tolerances, so you can adjust things if you need to. So
fantastic.
And we're getting there. There's still a ways to go, but it's really promising.
You said there's a few reasons for using steel. What's another?
Oh, look, the recyclability aspect of steel. I mean, the intention is that our buildings will last not just tens of years, or we want them to last hundreds of years. And when they do need to get revamped, then they can be taken apart and reused, or if they have to, we can recycle them. So, but that's it's durable, it's accurate, and it'll be 100% recyclable when it does need to be recycled.
And are you roll forming in your own factory as well?
We are, yeah. So we've the company's actually two entities really. There's we call it our Future Circle, which is the part of the organisation that's really focused on developing the technological solutions that we'll use, in 2, 10, 20 years from now, and then the commercial part of it, which is selling things. And so, we're always developing new machines, new ways of controlling processes, and bringing people into there who can help us solve problems as they come up.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you being involved in this. I'm so excited, and so, I remember the very first conversation that Nick and I had on the phone, and you could just tell from the moment we talked to each other that it's like, let's make it work. This is, So I'm really, really pumped that we were able to get this on this building, even though it wasn't designed into the building. It was just like I found out about you and said, can we incorporate it? And it's worked out. So
we're thrilled to be involved, and so thanks very much for the
really
opportunity.
Appreciate
it's been great. Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, Joost.
Great. Well, this week is going to be a big week. So we've got the kitchen getting finalised, and we are laying the floor. Got these windows finally being installed tomorrow, the louver windows, and the front door. We're finally getting a front door on Wednesday. So it's a big week for us here. We planted pumpkins on Sunday, and they're already growing. So we've got about 80 different types of plants growing here at the moment, and I've got about another 40 or so to go in Monbulk. And then as it gets warmer, I'll start to introduce things. We've got Joe's alternative to milk growing really well, which is a tiger nut, and I can't wait to see the food that Matt and Joe are going to cook with tiger nuts. We've got our radishes going really well. And on Sunday we lost a mussel, and on Monday we lost on Saturday we lost a mussel, and on Sunday we lost a mussel. And we've worked out that we were trying to get the water all in balance and ready for the barramundi to come in, but the water was actually too clean, and so now we're madly trying to get the fish in because the whole system is ready. And yabbies are doing really well, and the hydroponic system is doing well. The mushroom wall is going to arrive on Friday. We've got John from King Oyster Mushrooms coming to install it on Friday. That's pretty bloody exciting. And yeah, the solar panels go on next week on Monday, and so it's going to be a big week here at the greenhouse. Follow us on Future Food System, or my Instagram, or Joe Barrett, or Matt Stone's Instagram. Thanks for joining us.